French President Francois Hollande has said the growing proof of chemical weapons use in Syria obliges the international community to act. However, Mr. Hollande cautioned, "We can only act within the framework of international law." He spoke hours after Syrian government forces retook full control of the strategic western town of Qusair, after a siege lasting more than 2 weeks. A BBC News team taken by government forces to Qusair said it was in ruins. The first Western journalists to reach the city, they said there were few civilians. Meanwhile, the US and Russia have failed to set a date for proposed peace talks. The UN and Arab League envoy to Syria, Lakhdar Brahimi, said the international conference might now be held in July, rather than June as had been planned. He called the lack of agreement between Washington and Moscow embarrassing, but also noted that neither side in the Syrian conflict was ready to commit to attending. Syrian used. On Tuesday, French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius revealed that samples taken from locations of alleged chemical weapon attacks in Syria, including Sarakeb and Jabar, and brought to France had tested positive for the nerve agent, sarin. Mr. Fabius said he had no doubt that sarin had been used by the Syrian regime and its accomplices, but did not specify instances of its use. The US says more proof is needed. The Syrian government has repeatedly denied using chemical weapons, and has in turn accused the rebels of doing so, an allegation that they have also rejected. On Wednesday, Mr. Hollande told reporters, "We have the elements which now allow us to give certainty over the use of chemical weapons in Syria, at what level we still do not know. What has happened in Syria must be one more piece of pressure that can be put on the Syrian regime and its allies." In ruins. Qusair had been the focus of fierce fighting for more than 2 weeks between rebels and troops backed by a pro-government militia and fighters from the militant Lebanese Shia Islamist group, Hezbollah. State TV reported that a large number of rebels had died and many others had surrendered as troops advanced swiftly. The rebels said they withdrew overnight in the face of a massive assault. In the face of this huge arsenal and lack supplies and the blatant intervention of Hezbollah, tens of fighters stayed behind and ensured the withdrawal of their comrades along with the civilians, said a statement quoted by the Reuters news agency. The previously bustling town where 30,000 people once lived is now in ruins, with not one building visible that escaped the intense fighting, reports the BBC's Lys Doucet, who was taken to Qusair by the Syrian government. There appears to be only a handful of civilians left, a few farmers on tractors heading out of the town and one family loading up a vehicle, our correspondent says. She adds that both Syrian troops and Hezbollah fighters are in evidence everywhere, traveling in trucks and armored vehicles, firing guns in celebration and moving on foot through the streets. The International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, has said it fears there are shortages of food, water and medical supplies. George Sabra, the interim chairman of the main opposition alliance, the National Coalition, said there were hundreds of injured people awaiting help in the Qusair area and called on the Red Cross to be allowed access. Qusair lies only 10 kilometers, 6 miles, from the Lebanese border and is close to important supply routes for both the government and rebels. The army said Qusair's capture was a clear message to all those who share in the aggression on Syria, that we will continue our string of victories until we regain every inch of Syrian land. Correspondents say the battle for Qusair has highlighted Hezbollah's growing role in the Syrian conflict, a development that has heightened sectarian tensions in the wider region. Late on Wednesday, Lebanese media said that several rockets had landed in the Hezbollah stronghold of Baalbek inside Lebanon. Earlier this week, the leader of the main umbrella of rebel forces said his men were ready to fight inside Lebanon. On Sunday, Lebanese security sources said a number of people had been killed in an exchange of fire between Syrian rebels and Hezbollah fighters near Baalbek. New brutality. Speaking after a meeting of Arab foreign ministers on Wednesday, Arab League Secretary General Nabil al-Arabi said the group had expressed strong condemnation of all forms of foreign intervention in Syria, especially Hezbollah's role in Qusair, Reuters reports. Hundreds of Syrian refugees have been pouring across the border into the Lebanese town of Arsal, many of them attempting to register with the local municipality for supplies of water, food and other supplies. More than 80,000 people have been killed in Syria and more than 1.5 million have fled the country since an uprising against Mr. Assad began in 2011, according to UN estimates. The UN reported on Tuesday that the war had reached new levels of brutality, with evidence of massacres and children being taken hostage or forced to witness, and sometimes participate in, atrocities.